If you want to understand real survival under pressure, you don't look at the generals or the medals. You study the men whose jobs came with a built-in death sentence and still had to function every single day. World War II was not just about strategy and victory. It was about endurance in roles where the odds were brutally clear and survival depended on awareness, discipline and habits more than luck. For survivalists, these jobs are case studies in extreme risk management. Every role here teaches lessons that still apply when systems fail and danger becomes constant. Infantry soldiers lived where probability worked against them daily. The infantryman carried the war on his back and absorbed its violence head-on. In many campaigns, infantry made up less than half the fighting force, but suffered well over 70% of combat casualties. This imbalance matters. It tells us that exposure time and proximity to threat are the biggest killers, not firepower alone. Infantry survival came down to spacing, movement and restraint. Soldiers who stayed low, avoided bunching up, and learned when not to fire survived longer. Translating this into survival terms, never linger in exposed terrain, never move in predictable clusters, and never engage unless the benefit outweighs the risk. In World War II, experienced infantry units rotated positions constantly because static presence invited artillery. The ratio was simple. Movement increased survival more than armour ever did. Bomber crews accepted math that few people could live with. Strategic bomber crews faced some of the worst survival odds of the war. In early missions over Europe, the chance of completing a full tour without being killed or captured could be as low as 1 in 4. These men flew predictable routes at predictable altitudes, making them ideal targets. What kept some alive was redundancy and discipline. Crews memorized emergency procedures until they were reflex, not thought. Survivalists should note this ratio. Preparation time versus crisis time must be heavily weighted toward preparation. When something goes wrong, you do not rise to the occasion. You fall back on training. Bomber crews who survived had rehearsed bailouts, fires, and decompression scenarios long before the first flak burst appeared. Submarine crews lived in a sealed survival experiment gone wrong. Submariners faced one of the highest fatality rates of the war, with some navies losing over 30% of all submarine personnel. Once detected, survival options dropped close to zero. What kept crews alive as long as possible was discipline in silence, oxygen management and stress control. Panic killed submariners faster than depth charges. From a survival standpoint, submarines teach confinement survival. Limited air, limited food, and no rescue window mean you conserve energy and control emotion. Crews rationed not just supplies, but movement and noise. In modern survival scenarios, especially in hiding or siege conditions, controlling output matters more than stockpiling. Combat medics stood in the open so others could live. Medics were marked, unarmed, and still deliberately targeted. Their casualty rates often exceeded frontline infantry because they moved toward danger instead of away from it. What made medics survive was speed, situational awareness, and improvisation. They treated wounds with minimal tools under fire, often using terrain as their only protection. For survivalists, this role proves that medical skill multiplies survival odds across groups. A single trained medic could keep 10 fighters alive longer than 10 fighters could protect one medic. The ratio is clear. Medical knowledge delivers exponential value. Learning trauma care, bleeding control, and shock management is not optional for serious survival planning. Tank crews survived steel coffins with discipline and escape planning. While tanks offered armor, once penetrated, they became death traps. Fire, ammunition cook-offs, and toxic smoke killed crews in seconds. Crews who survived trained obsessively on bailout drills. They knew exactly which hatch to use and when. This teaches a critical survival principle: always have a secondary exit and rehearse it. Whether it is a vehicle, shelter, or urban escape route, your survival odds improve drastically when exit decisions are automatic. W2 tank crews who hesitated died. Those who moved instantly lived. Engineers and mine clearers worked against invisible killers. Combat engineers clearing mines face constant silent danger. One mistake meant instant death. Their survival depended on patience, spacing, and routine. Engineers advanced inches at a time, never rushing. In survival terms, this is risk detection and mitigation. Slow progress with high awareness beats speed in unknown environments. When resources are scarce or terrain is unfamiliar, moving too fast multiplies risk. Engineers survived by respecting the unseen. Paratroopers traded certainty for chaos. Paratroopers entered combat scattered, underarmed, and isolated. Casualty rates during airborne landings were often extreme in the first hours. Survival depended on adaptability and rally points. Those who immediately oriented themselves, found cover, and regrouped had far better odds. This is a lesson in post-disruption survival. When plans collapse, the first priority is orientation, not action. Find your bearings, reduce exposure, and link up with allies. What these jobs teach survivalists today. Across all these roles, survival followed patterns. Those who respected probability lived longer. Those who trained for failure instead of success adapted faster. Those who conserved energy and controlled fear made fewer fatal mistakes. WW2’s most dangerous jobs were not survived by bravery alone, but by habits repeated under stress. Apply this by drilling your exits, medical skills, movement discipline, and decision-making under pressure. The ratio always favors preparation over reaction. If this guide sharpened how you think about real survival, subscribe to Survivor's Guide, share this with someone who takes preparedness seriously, and stay ready. Survival isn't dramatic. It's deliberate.